A man accused of faking his own death, then fleeing to Europe, all to avoid rape charges, returns to court.
Objection, my lady. That is complete hearsay.
Nicholas Rossi, whose legal name is Nicholas Alahverdian, is charged with the 2008 rape of his then 21-year-old girlfriend, and in a separate case is accused of raping another woman in the same year. But his identity as the suspect wasn't revealed until nearly a decade later. His case has made national and international headlines after faking his death, fleeing across the pond, and adopting a new accent and a new look.
Are you Mr. Rossi? Are you Mr. Rossi?
No, my lady.
You might have to take that off just to talk so that she
No,
can
my
hear.
lady.
Is that a yes? Having a hard time.
My name is Arthur Knight, Brain.
I think I'm going to have the jail restate what he said. Having a really hard time hearing him.
What is it?
My name is Arthur Knight, Brain.
He says his name is Arthur Knight
Brown.
Brown.
Arthur Knight, Brain.
I can't hear. You want to have him state his name and date of birth?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we can't hear him at all. Can you ask him, can you please state your name and date of birth?
You get a little closer.
Lady, my name is Arthur Knight, Brain. My date of birth is 22nd of the 11th, 1986.
Okay,
I think we're having a problem with understanding who this person is.
this is not number 36.
Your Honor, we've got him as Nicholas Rossi, but he's saying his name is Arthur Knight Brown.
Oh, that's one of the AKAs.
So who is Nicholas Alahverdian, who also happens to be Nicholas Rossi, who is also Arthur Knight Brown? According to reports, he was born Nicholas Alahverdian in July 1987. He was later adopted by his stepfather, David Rossi, who changed his last name to Rossi.
Is it July 11th, 1987?
No, my lady, it's 22nd of November, 1986.
22nd of November, 1986.
Yes, ma'am.
While he lived in Rhode Island, he reportedly made a name for himself as a vocal critic of the state's Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Then, in early 2020, Rossi told Rhode Island media he had late-stage Hodgkin's lymphoma, with only weeks left to live. But by this time, he was wanted by Utah authorities on a pair of rape charges, where he allegedly lured the victims online and trapped them in his home and sexually assaulted them. By February 29th of that year, an obituary was published online claiming Rossi was dead. Then in a twist, his former lawyer said he moved to an unknown location in Ireland a year prior to his supposed death. During that time, he changed his moniker to Arthur Brown, and he met his wife, Miranda Knight. The pair later married in early 2020, and he took on the name Arthur Knight Brown. Prosecutors say over the years, Rossi has used at least 10 different aliases. Authorities eventually caught up to Rossi when he was arrested in December 2021 after being recognized by someone in a Glasgow, Scotland hospital while he was being treated for COVID. But of course, he denied being Nicholas Rossi. Instead, he insisted he was an Irish orphan named Arthur Knight and claimed to have never set foot on U.S. soil. The so-called Arthur Knight claimed he was framed by authorities who took his fingerprints while he was in a coma. In August of 2023, a UK judge ruled Rossi can be extradited to the United States and dismissed the mistaken identity claims as implausible and fanciful. He was extradited back to the U.S. on January 5th of this year and booked into the Davis County Jail in Utah, where he's remained since.
This individual has been extradited, and he has not admitted his name or birth date accurately, and so I don't think we're going to be successful on that today either. It's also known as.
Objection, my lady. That is complete hearsay, and I would ask your ladyship that the prosecution show cause for why they proceeded to allow
Mr. Knight, I'm going to...
Whilst I had an appeal pending in the Supreme Court.
and now he's set to face the charges that he originally fled from. On August 22nd, Rossi appeared in a Utah County courtroom for his preliminary hearing ahead of his rape trial. But the judge previously decided to address Rossi as his alias, Arthur Knight.
All righty, welcome everybody. We have our attorneys here. Mr. Knight is here. Good afternoon, Mr. Knight. Counsel, you ready to proceed?
State is ready, Your Honor.
Okay.
The state presented one witness during the hearing, Detective Derek Coates, who previously worked for the Utah Department of Public Safety, where he was assigned to work under the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative, a federal grant where he investigated the backlog of sexual assaults and assault kits, which previously went untested. Prosecutors say Rossi wasn't identified as a suspect in the 2008 rape case until nearly a decade later due to the backlog of DNA testing. Detective Coates testified he interviewed one of Rossi's alleged victims after she reported her rapist was on the news.
What kind of allegation was made in the Utah County case, and when did that allegation come from?
Okay, so the case in Utah County was a reported, again, sexual assault. And so the DNA from that sexual assault kit was submitted for testing under the SAKI program, as I described earlier. And so that case required an investigation and follow-up, which then led to other information.
Okay. When and where was the sexual assault in Utah County alleged to have happened?
Best recollection, I'm sorry, it's been a minute since I've looked at it. It was 2008, I remember that. It was around the summer, the late spring, or like spring, summer of 2008.
Okay. And was that in what city was it in?
Orem was the reporting agency.
Okay. So, and I'm sorry, I've just forgotten your answer. When did you, approximately when did you say you kind of took the lead in the investigation in that Orem case?
I don't remember the specific, but it was in 2020. It was like right on the cusp of December, January.
Okay. Did you hear, so I'm jumping forward in time now, did there start to be media attention about that investigation and the subsequent investigation later on?
Yes.
As a result of that media attention, did you hear from anyone in Salt Lake County?
I did.
Who did you hear from?
So in this case, and are we using initials or full name, or would you prefer?
State's preference would be initials.
Okay. So MS reached out and had indicated that she had a relationship with the individual on the news media named Nicholas Rossi or Nicholas Alahverdian. She knew him as Nicholas Rossi.
Okay. Did you interview her?
I did.
Do you remember approximately when you interviewed her?
I want to say it was January 14th, 2022.
Did she take you to see anything soon thereafter?
Yes.
What did she take you to see?
So, based on the description that she had given, we attempted to locate a house in that area of Salt Lake City where she believed that the individual, Nicholas Rossi, was living at that time.
And was she able to take you to a particular street, to a particular house?
She was.
Do you remember the address of that house?
853 Blair Street, as I recall.
Okay. And is that house in Salt Lake County?
Correct.
What's the general category of the crime that she alleged Nicholas Rossi had committed?
That would be sexual assault.
And approximately when did she tell you that the Nicholas Rossi had sexually assaulted her?
That was in December of 2008.
Did she give you any documents from around that time, from around December of 2008, that were related to her report?
Correct. Yes, she did.
What did she give you?
She gave me,
Your Honor, I'd be objecting on the basis of hearsay and relevance.
Overruled. Go ahead.
she provided me a copy of a application for wedding rings to a Utah jewelry store at a local mall, and she also provided me cell phone records around that time.
Detective Coates says he was able to match the alleged victim's statement and verify that Rossi previously lived at the home where the alleged assault occurred.
So I looked in court exchange for any activity that had occurred involving the name Nicholas Rossi, and I also looked in local police reports for any activity that had involved that same name.
Okay. And did you find any evidence connecting Nicholas Rossi to the 1362 South, 460 West Orem address? And did you find records connecting him to that address?
I did.
And what about the 853 Blair Street address?
I had also located within Salt Lake City's record system and as the court exchanged that address.
Okay, so MS had reported something that happened back in December of 2008. As part of your investigation for the Orem case, had you researched the subsequent, the history, the location, and the identity of Nicholas Rossi after December, for where he went after December of 2008?
Yes.
So you mentioned DNA evidence that connected with the Orem case. Was where did you say that case was from?
The Orem case?
So sorry, the DNA that the CODIS hit so the CODIS hit from the Orem case. Where other than Orem, where was the CODIS hit to?
It connected out of Ohio.
Okay. And were you able to locate a case for Mr. Rossi in Ohio?
I have.
And approximately when was that case from?
That was late winter. I seem to recall around February, but it is 2008 as well,
Okay.
out of Montgomery County.
Okay. Earlier that same year?
Correct.
Okay. And was Nicholas Rossi convicted in that case in Ohio?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. As a result of that conviction, was he required to register as a sex offender?
He was.
And have you seen records of his sex offender registration connected to that case?
I have.
Okay, now I want to ask you about, as you were investigating Mr. Rossi, what did you determine to be his, did you find a birth certificate for him?
Yes.
Your Honor, with the defense having stipulated to the identity in this case, the identity of the defendant, the state rests.
When it came time for the defense's line of questioning, they kept it brief.
So there was a CODIS hit out of a Utah County case, correct?
Yes.
There is no DNA in the Salt Lake County case, to your understanding, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then are you involved in sort of investigating both of these cases or just the Salt Lake County case?
Both.
Okay. That's the only questions I have for this witness.
All right, sit down. All right, any other evidence for the state?
The state rests.
All right, any evidence for the defense?
No, Your Honor. I have previously advised my client about his right to testify today. It is my advice with Mr. Rossi, as it is with all of my clients, not testify at preliminary hearings, or given the standard that is a preliminary hearing. I do believe he intends to take my advice. Is that still the case?
Yes, just to be clear, then, Mr. Rossi, you're going to follow your attorney's advice and not testify today. Is that correct? That is correct. Okay. Any other evidence?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
And despite the brief hearing, the judge ruled there was enough evidence for the case to move forward.
Well, this is a preliminary hearing at which the court needs to determine from the evidence whether there is probable cause to believe that the crime charged in the information was committed by this defendant. In making this probable cause determination, the prosecution is required to produce evidence sufficient to support a reasonable belief that the defendant committed the crime, the charged crime. In doing so, the court views all evidence in the light most favorable to the prosecution and must draw all reasonable inferences in favor of the prosecution. Applying that standard here, I find and conclude that the state has met its burden and has presented evidence sufficient to establish probable cause to believe that the crime charged in the information was committed and it was committed by this defendant. Accordingly, this matter is bound over.
And Nicholas Rossi, who has been locked up since being extradited back to the U.S. in January, will appear in court again on October 17th for arraignment and a bail hearing. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.